Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Journey Coach. It's good to see you. I'm glad you're joining me, Tammy Mosier, and picking up where we left off last time, which is completing the build out of your weekly agenda, weekly planner. So this is the template and where we stopped last time, where we had our what's next that we could add in, our planning checklist, which we put some items in, and then our not to-do list that you can fill out. And as we discussed, just as a quick reminder, anything you put in these as part of the template will then show up every time you use the template again. So we have this bar up here so we can add in our navigation for our page. And now we're at the point where we can start looking at how we want to fill in and fill out the view of our week. So this is going to require a few different views or decisions that you need to make. So I'm going to go back over to my weekly agenda real quick and kind of refresh our memory of how I have mine set up. So here's the area we just saw. And my next view is my calendar. So you can use or decide on how you want to do this a few different ways. I also use a Google Calendar because that's connected to my Calendly, which allows people to schedule time with me one-on-one and do some consulting work and coaching work with them. But that being said, I like to keep all my notes and everything in Notion. So minimal information goes in the Google Calendar, enough to block off time and just tell me what it is. The actual detail goes in my weekly agenda. Now, that being said, the other option here is that they are working on the API. When that comes out, I more than likely should be able to just embed my Google Calendar with different views and functionality. And so we'll see how that works when it comes up. But that being said, I actually have a calendar database, and that database is designed to only have time sensitive meetings put in there. In other words, I have to be someplace at a specific time for a specific time period. And that's what goes here. So if we go back over to our work, and I'm going to favorite this. And we're going to go back in to edit the actual template. Just a reminder on how to do that. And so if you want your calendar to go right here as well, then you can put your actually inline table right here. And you can start it in several different ways. Now, I actually have it set up as a board, and I have it set up as a board using my days as the way that gets filled in. But we're going to start with just the calendar view. I think that that will kind of give you a better perspective. So this is my calendar, and we'll add this as a meetings view. Oops, let's not do that. So here's our calendar, right? And at this point, we don't have any actual items set up here to collect information on. But let's say that we actually want to collect the date, right? And then I have a time tag, and I have it set as text, so I can fill in a time. So July 8th, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And then it's what other properties do you want to have? Now, one other property I have to add is the day property, and this is a select field because this gives me the ability to put it in that board format. So Monday, Tuesday, and I don't generally have actual appointments on Sundays. I take that day off. So you don't need to put it in here unless you just want to. So I can select a day. And the one thing here is it won't be automatic. So July 8th is today. That's a Wednesday. So I do have to select that instead of have a formula. But a formula can't be used in the board view, so that's why I actually have a select field for the day. So who I'm meeting with, I could put here, or meeting leader. I have that on there because I have a situation where we often, and I do a select field. And then I have a URL field. So this is, as with probably most of us, or many of us right now, meetings are over Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Hangouts, Skype, whatever you use. This allows me to put that URL just right here, and then it I have it show on the card so I can just click and go. So let's just make that up. You can put an icon if you want to on it. And now there it is. Now, if I want to change what I see on that, so for instance, you go to properties. So we're going to go over here, properties, and I can set up what I actually want to see on this card. I don't need to see the date if I'm in the calendar view, because obviously it's already on the date. I don't need to see the day on the calendar, but I do want to see the time, and I may want to go ahead and put the URL link on there. And let's say I want the meeting leader. So if I go back into this and I fill all that in and say Tammy Mosier's the leading meter, and that's our URL. So now when I go back over here, that's all on that little card, easy for me to see, and those would populate the calendar. So now let's say we want the board view, and this is going to give me weekly meetings. So if I look at the calendar view, I've got the month, and if I look at my board view, we're going to set this up, and it's already, as you can see, this was the only feature that was available that was a select field, so it went ahead and took the first one. I'm going to hide this no day field, so that puts it down here to the side. And then I'm going to adjust the properties. So I want that same information. I want the date in this instance. I don't need the day because it's already sorted by that. I want the time and the URL. And if I don't like the date at the top, I can, these little 6 arrows, drag it, and it changes where it's at on the card. So you can really move around how you want to see what you've populated to the card. I'm not going to worry. I really don't want the date. I want the time, and I want that information. And then I'm going to add one more thing here, and that's the sort feature. And I'm going to sort by time, right? So I want my AM to sit above my PM and in order that they would occur during the day. So I need to add the sort by time. Now, the one other thing on a template you need to set is what view do you want to automatically populate when you're looking at a new template? Because whichever one of these views you have at the top, that's what's automatically going to show. So I want to see my weekly meetings as the default I want on my template. So I'm just going to hit those 6 dots again, drag above, drop, and now when I open up a new template and start a new week, it will automatically do those weekly meetings like that. So that's what I need to start with. Now there's one other thing you need to set up for this particular view right now. If I had a month's worth of meetings lined up in here, I would be seeing them all sorted by day. But I only want to see this week's. So what I'm going to do is go to my filter property, and I want to add a filter group, and I'm going to do by date, and it needs to be before an exact date, and so change this to and after that date. So if I'm talking about this week, it's before the 12th, and I need to change that. I need to change that to on or before, on or after, and on or after the 6th, because that's the week, right? So now I've truncated it down a little bit further, and I'm only going to see this week's in this view. Now I don't need that kind of filter on the calendar view, because the calendar view automatically I'm looking at a full month's view, and I can sort through here, look at future and past months. So I like to have this view available to me where I can just pop it open and see what's going on for the next month. Because let's say I'm in my week view on my weekly agenda, and I'm working and getting things done, and I'm on the phone or in a meeting with someone, and they're like, let's set up our next meeting. I think we need to meet next week. Well, I could go over here and actually go to the calendar database, or I can just go, okay, let's look. Flip it over to monthly view, and I can see everything. So that's the next step in your setting up your weekly planner. And I like having my calendar with time sensitive, have to do on a specific day and time at the top, because that's one of the first things I look at every morning and every evening before I shut myself down for the day. What do I have going on the next day in the morning? Remind myself when I have to be in meetings. Okay, so we've done that. Now let's set up a new divider on our page. So again, this is the 3 lines. So hit the line 3 times and it gives you that, or the dash 3 times. And now I'm ready to set up another section. I always add a little bit of space there just so I have a little more room. And I could get more specific. I could also take that full line and put that there as a divider as well. So I like to use color. It doesn't all have to be bright color. The other thing you can do up here, just as a side note, is let's say I'm looking at this option and I'm like, I want them all to be the same color so that that's less colorful and more standardized. So I can go in here and I could change all the days of the week to brown, and maybe I want to go on my weekend. I want the weekend to show up as a color. Now you don't have to do that. When you're putting them in and typing them in as this in the select field, it tends to pick different colors randomly, but you can go in and change that. So again, I just hit the 3 dots and it gives me the colors. So I can get rid of the actual color there. I can go gray. So, you know, you can really customize this to look however you want it to look and make it as colorful or as monochromatic as you prefer. Okay, so next area. So if we go back over to the planner that I use, I'm going to move that to the top so it's what opens every week. And we go down to my area here. I start with appointments, right? Got this block area, then I've got my appointments. And then the next set, if you look up here to my navigation, are focus projects right here. So one of the things that I do is pull out projects that I might want to just go directly into the project and work out of there instead of necessarily through the action items or things of that nature. And so when I go to the projects database, this is tied and filtered by what I choose up here for focus projects. So let me show you how that works in case that's an area you also want to add. So as I go back over here to editing my weekly planner, you'll notice we haven't added properties up here yet to really get this in place. And I don't have developed yet all the other areas I might want. So, and let me explain that by showing you. So we're working on the weekly planner right now. And what I'm going to do for the weekly planner here is I'm going to hit this little plus button and we're going to set up our project database. Okay. And I'm going to do empty because then I'm just going to do an inline. And you could do this a couple of different ways. You could set up individual pages for databases, or I could just say these are my databases. And so I embedded the calendar database as just part of the weekly planner template. But now that I've got this page set up, let me show you what we can do. I'm going to go back in to over to our actual weekly planner, the agenda area. And I'm going to go down to this database. Let me open it as a page. And so I can do this and move to, and it gives me a list of places to move, and I'm going to move to, I can either do the weekly planner, right? So I'm going to move to the weekly planner. And when I go back over to weekly planner, I've got the calendar here. So I can move this around is what I'm saying. So I'm going to rearrange this a little bit in how we've got this set up, and that I'm going to, this right here in terms of this is weekly planner. So this is going to be our entire weekly or database set for weekly planner, right? So I've got the weekly agenda views right here. I've got my calendar database embedded. And this is now how that would look. And then I've got this, which I'm going to delete real quick. So if I go back over to this weekly agenda view and edit, here, I've lost this, right? So here's how, if you've set up your own databases, you do your /, and I'm going to do a created linked database, and I'm going to go calendar. And that's the calendar database set for weekly planner is where that calendar's at. And so here's the view. It's putting it in the actual table view. I'm going to change that and go, I want the calendar view. Create. There's that calendar view. Go into my properties, tell it what I want on there. Meeting leader, time, URL. Okay. And then I'm going to add my table view. What you'll see is that's the table view is already there. I'm going to move my calendar view up. I'm going to add a view. It's going to be my weekly meetings. It's a board. Here we go. I'm going to hide my no day again. I'm going to go in here. I can add the properties I actually want to see. And I can also make them smaller. All right, I can change that view. Go back in and we've got to do our filter again. So I'm going to add a filter group. We're going to use date is on or before the 12th and date on or after the 6th, and that's this week. And then that's in there so that we just have to change the dates in every new one we pull up. And I'm going to sort by date. There we go. So now, instead of just seeing the say calendar, it's got that little arrow pointing up and to the right, and that means that it's embedded from another location. All right. So we've got that. Now for projects, we don't have a projects database set up yet, so we can't set up the relationship. But I want to set up a database for projects. This goes back to, and you may already have these all together, right? And so I'm going to do just a table view and name, tag, files. We'll just leave that for here right now. And I'm going to put in as a project, sample project. Okay. So now I'm going to go back. You can see our database here, and I'm going to add this to the database setup. And now I'm going to go back to the weekly agenda. Edit. So hopefully by now you're starting to see how you can build these out and build even your databases as you go if that's what you want to do. So I'm going to do my divider line here. I'm going to set up another color block to differentiate. And now, database for weekly. So this is going to populate in here for us to see. And right now we've got it in a table view. So I'm going to come up here and add a relationship. So this is going to be projects. And I'm going to put in focus projects. You could put weekly projects, however you want to do that. And then I'm going to come down here to relation. I'm going to select a database, projects, and I want the projects that are in the database set for weekly planner, create relationship. Okay, so here that is. So on this week, I'm going to attach the sample project is going to be what I'm paying close attention to. And when I go down here, I'm going to add a view, and I like the gallery view here. Focus projects, create it. Okay. I'm going to set this up for me to actually work with it. So I'm going to add a filter, and the filter is going to be the link to the weekly agenda. Now, right now, I don't have dates in here because this is just the actual template we're working with. But I'm going to say weekly planner. We've already, the sample project was connected. So now when you spin a new one up and you're going to use it for a new week, you would come in and actually put the projects that are in there for that week. And I'll show you how that looks on mine so you have a better idea. Then you can come in here and adjust. I always do the page cover and do it in the small. And then you can put any of these that you want to see on the actual card, you can choose here and it will show you that information. So if we go back over and look at mine for the focus projects, you'll see here's where they're connected from my database right here. So I choose them. If I wanted to add a new one, I'd click in there and then click there and it'd give me a list of all my projects that I could add in that I want to focus on. If I go to my focus projects section, and we look at the filter, you'll see that this is related to this weekly planner. So that way, when you put that in place, what it does, let me remove that one. When you put that one in place with the week, what that does is it makes sure that when you're on this week's planner, whatever you choose here will automatically populate right here. I hope that's making sense. Now, I have another database that I moved my studies, in other words, my actual study projects. So certificates I'm working on, classes I'm taking, that type of thing. And I can also, up here at the top, I have let's find it's focus learning. So I could go into here, and here are the classes that I have that I'm taking right now. Most of them are active. So I could click on those if that's going to be a focus this week, and I can show you here. If I put that there and add it there, and then I go back down here to my focus projects, there it is, and it populates. So these projects tend to be things that I'm constantly working on, and they aren't completed. They have a lot of different moving parts and pieces, and I just want to be able to click into this project. And if I open this project, then I can see all the appointments associated with it, all the weekly agendas it's been on, how close to being finished it is, action items, links out, views of action items and calendar meeting notes and things of that nature. So that's why I like to just have those cards available. And you'll notice that I did not have, when we started, anything in focus learning. And if I want to get that out of the focus, I don't want to focus on that, I can just delete it there. It doesn't delete the project stays in place. But I don't have any in there because this week is full of a lot of other things. So I knew I wasn't going to have any time to look at any learning projects and dig into any of them. So why have it on my weekly planner? It's just going to get in the way and make things look more challenging than they actually are. So that's focus projects. Do you want this on your page or not? Do you need it on your page or not? Question you need to ask yourself. This may be one of those things that if you're taking classes, that you want to definitely have an area where whatever classes you're actively in right now show up, because you'll be getting in and out of those. Now, you may go, well, why do you have a projects database and a studies database? Well, what generally dictates whether I add a different database, because you could say a class I'm taking is a project. That's true, but there's different types of data that I want to collect in that database. So they don't match. And if I try to combine them, then I have a lot of empty slots in both, and that just doesn't look as professional or effective as I would want it to be. And it's less productive because I have a lot of stuff on the top that's not relevant to that particular area. So for me, that's when a decision starts to get made on whether I need a whole entirely different database. Okay, so now as we're getting this all together and starting to get our setup put together, we can start looking at what else we want on this page. And so what you'll notice is the next thing that would be in line for mine would be an action item. So actually looking at what are my to-dos today. And what I would say is that the calendar and the to-dos are the must-haves. And once you have those there, then the projects are something you could think about adding. In fact, you might want to take this project section and move it down here, the focus projects down, so that it's at the bottom of your page, and that's, do you want it or not? So now I need, the next thing would be an action item, to-do list, whatever you want to call it. And the difference for me is these to-do action items end up connected to projects a lot of the time. And they are not items that go on this quick to-do or household tasks, because they're things with more working parts and pieces. I may want to store notes on them. I want different types of data collected surrounding them. So I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to do a new one. And this is going to be my action items. Okay. And a table. So I'm going to put in here, and we're going to put something in like finish taxes. Okay. So that may be something that when you open it up has a lot of parts and pieces, right? So like for your 2020 taxes. And you may want that as a project, But let's just say it's an action item, and what you want to do on that action item is you're going to have a checklist of things that need to be collected and ready to be put or sent to your, either in your tax portal or sent to your account, right? Another could be create a newsletter of achievements for a department. Right? So I can have different ones. So then you start thinking about, what do I want to collect on that? Do I want to connect it to a master tags database, or just have tags associated with it? Like, this is personal, this is business, I could have, or work, I could have that kind of separated out in different ways. Do I have files I want to attach? Do I want a due date? So a due date would be DO when you want to try to actually do it. Then there's the deadline, and the deadline is when it absolutely has to be done. And I really like having those two dates because that gives me some level of understanding of how much time I have to juggle that. And then I may put something in here like, for my action items, I may want to also see information like people it's attached to. I want a project relationship. So I'm going to connect it to my projects database that we just created, so that if the action item is part of a larger project, I'm ready to get that connected. So you can go ahead and fill that out and add more items here as you see fit. It's just up to what you want to do and collect overall. So back into editing our template. And so I'm going to create right here, create to a linked database. And I want action items. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to go ahead, and for the due date here, I'm going to put it on the 10th. And for the due date on the taxes, let's say the 31st, because maybe your year-end taxes is July 31st, because that's entirely possible. You can sort these, work with them other ways. That's up to you. But that's as much as we're going to do right now, because I'm going to add my view. So I would set up different views here as well. So let's say we've got our board view, and it's by tag. Now, the thing about the board is that the only way a board can be used is if you've actually got a tag set up, and it'll differentiate the tags that way. So you can add a new group right here. If you go, oh, I want a new tag, I can put it right here. And you can create a completely new tag system that would separate it out, like we did up here, days of the week. So I have several different views here based on time, sync, how much time I think it's going to take to work on it. And I will go show you that here in a minute. But I'm going to set up the same kind of filter here, right? Because I want to group. And I'm going to do it by the due date, when I actually would like to get it done. And I want it to be within this week. So there's some different ways you can actually put this together and decide how you want your view here. I usually do the exact same setup where it's on or before and on or after that week range. I could just do on or before here. See, we had one disappear. And so then if I have anything that's late, that's not been done, the due date was last week and it's there, it would show up. But I do need to add another filter. I need an and filter, and we don't have it here right now. So what I need to add to this, and I can just do it right here, is I'm going to add a property, and it's done, and it's a checkbox. So when it's done, completed, whatever you want it to say. And that's how easy it is to move those around. So now I can go back to my filter, and I need done is not checked. That way it's on or before whatever the end of this weekly planner is, and it hasn't been checked as done. it will disappear. Now, what that does, just so you know, is as I would check things off, so in my properties, I would have that. And when I check that off, it disappears because the filter is if it's checked off as done, it's gone. I don't really like that in my weekly planner because I like the satisfaction of seeing all the things I've checked off too. But if I would like to have just a clean view, that's what I could do. So I tend to have this there, but then I also have, what I'll do with this is I'll set it up on or before the beginning of this week. So, because I want this to catch anything that's past due. Then I'm going to add another filter group, and it's an or the due date is on or after July 6th, and the due date is on or before the 12th, because that's the week I'm working with right now. So this right here allows me to catch anything that's past due that hasn't been done. And this allows me to catch everything that is in this week, regardless of whether I've checked it off as done or not. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So that is a quick overview of how you can design a weekly template, a weekly planner template, just like I have. We haven't filled in all of the specifics, and so we're going to go one last time over to mine, and I'm going to show you some of your choices, because the one thing you need to do in this now that's uniquely up to you is put in the actual properties you want to collect in that database. And before I put this on Gumroad, I'll go in and put in the ones I think are a priority or should be there. But if you don't like it, it's all you have to do is click it and delete it. And as simple as that, that property that I may have on there is gone. And if you've added a property and then you go 2 weeks and you've been collecting that, you don't want to see it anymore, you don't find it useful, delete it. Now that deletes everything you've added, but it helps you actually have a cleaner look up there. And then if you see something that I didn't add, you just add the property and decide what kind of property it is. All right, so that gives you the fundamentals to build a planner just like mine. And I'm going to show you one more time what mine looks like so you can see how I've added properties, because that's the one other thing you might want to consider looking at. Now in mine, you can see I've got a lot of relationships. Anytime you see that arrow up and pointing to the right, that's a relationship database. So this is a monthly reflection database. This is the month of July. So when I go into the month of July, I will have all of my weekly planners will be populated in there. What quarter of the year is this? And then I add some text fields because I want to collect some specific information. Call it my journal reflection kind of setup for me. I'm not good at that. I've never been able to journal effectively, but I'm actually finding this very useful to capture that kind of information weekly. You could score your productivity level. Then I have all of this. When you see the little looking glass, magnifying glass, what that actually is a roll up. And so that's pulling information from other databases I have collected information from. Here's my focus project, the focus learning, and research projects under database. And this is the daily view. And I can also look at the table. I don't tend to look at this as a full calendar, although I could easily. We've already talked about the projects database. And then when I get to my actions, that's how I've got these set up in terms of what I collect. So like this is the priority board. Must do, second string if I can, someday, on hold, or in production. There's a time sync view, 50 minutes, 15 minutes, and they've become kind of jumbled. So I would order them by the time. So 15-minute items, 30-minute items, 50-minute items, up to 3 and 4 hour items. And they've got the same kind of filters and sorts for the days and all of that. A calendar view. So I can see them just by calendar and see the list I've got by the due date I actually set on them. So, your views, you can really kind of set those up in whatever way you find most useful for you. So that's an overview and gives you kind of information on how I have the top properties set up for these different databases. And now you've walked through in 2 different videos how to actually build this out yourself and how to set your filters and sorts. And I hope this was useful for you so that you can build it out. By the end of the week, maybe the first of next week, the link to this video will actually take you to the templates so you can purchase them. I'm going to add a little bit more information in them and clean them up a little bit for you before I do that. Otherwise, if you don't want to wait, I would say just watch the part 1, part 2 of the build your own, and then you can refer back to my video on my updated weekly agenda and go back and look at that to kind of start to piece it all together the way you want it to be. And you can build your own and it will be ready to go probably before I even get this template out for you to purchase. But I'll update in that location if you're looking for it. I hope you have a great week. I hope this video has been useful. If you have any questions, feel free to just post them. Subscribe to the channel if you want more information on this, or if you're a doctoral learner and want to continually get information about both Notion, other software that can be useful to you. And then you'll see that I have some other videos on success, strategies for success. And so those are going to start filling out again, and I'll start spending some more time on them now that I've spent time on kind of helping build out these planners for people. And then you can also always subscribe to the newsletter, the Journey Coach newsletter. So that link will also be down below this video. In the meantime, have a great rest of the week. I hope your journey is fulfilling and filled with things that you love. And I hope I can be a small part of it. Thank you. And until next time.